Well, the news just coming in. The GST Council has approved the rate rationalisation proposal. There will be a two-slab GST structure with 5% and 18% as the two slabs, along with a special 40% special rate for sin goods. The new rates are set to kick in, set to take effect from the 22nd of September. Here is the GST Council representative from Himachal Pradesh on the big decisions.
जीएसटी रैशनलाइजेशन पे आम सहमति से जो है सबने उसके पक्ष में वोट किया कि सभी चाहते थे कि आम आदमी को राहत मिले। हमारा जो कंसर्न था कि एक तो जो रेट रैशनलाइजेशन का है उसका डायरेक्ट बेनिफिट कॉमन पीपल को मिलना चाहिए, आम जनमानस को मिलना चाहिए, और दूसरा जो कंपनसेशन का है उस पर कोई किसी तरह का कोई अभी तक मैकेनिज्म नहीं बना है।
सर, कितना लॉस केंद्र सरकार ने बताया कि इतना रेवेन्यू लॉस हो सकता है रेट रैशनलाइजेशन की वजह से?
टोटल 93,000 करोड़ का माइनस में है, लेकिन प्लस जो है वो सिन गुड्स और लग्जरी गुड्स की वजह से 45,000 का होगा। तो नेट जो है बैलेंस
माइनस 93 प्लस 45
93 माइनस 45।
पर सर ये जो जीएसटी स्लैब करने पे सहमति पर
नो वोटिंग है, यूनानिमसली रिजॉल्व।
सर तो बेसिकली दो स्लैब करने पे सहमति
नहीं, कोई वोटिंग नहीं हुई, आम सहमति से हुआ।
करने पर बंद किया ना
सहमति 2 स्लैब
सर 5 और 18 दो स्लैब पे सहमति
5 और 18 और सिन एंड लग्जरी गुड्स पे 40%।
40% सहमति बन गई।
अभी तक इसके बारे में कोई चर्चा नहीं हुई, कोई डिसीजन नहीं हुआ। नहीं, कल नहीं होगी, आज होगा।
12% अब नहीं रहेगा सर, 12 और 28
12 और 28 नहीं रहेगा।
22 सितंबर
5 and 18 प्लस सिन एंड लग्जरी गुड्स पे 40%।
कब से लागू होंगे रेट?
22 सितंबर।
देखिए, एक गरीब आदमी के जीवन को सुलभ बनाने के लिए देशवासियों को दीपावली के इस अवसर पर, नवरात्रि के इस अवसर पर मोदी जी ने बहुत बड़ा तोहफा दिया है। हमारी वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण जी ने आज बहुत बढ़िया तरीके से पूरा एक जो मात्र 8 साल के इस कम समय के अंदर इतना बड़ा बदलाव, देश के एक विकसित भारत की तरफ बढ़ते हुए कदम।
सर, क्या क्या बढ़िया छूट मिलने वाली है?
देखिए, रोटी, कपड़ा, मकान, हर विषय के ऊपर बहुत अच्छी छूट है। आप बाकी जब नोटिफिकेशन जारी होगा तब आपको बता दिया जाएगा।
Well, our reporters are there on the ground right outside the Sushma Swaraj Bhavan to get a sense of what the road ahead looks like. In fact, to discuss that further, I am joined by Shireen Bhan. She's joining us on the phone line. Shireen, interesting from the initial comments coming in from the State Finance Minister saying that this decision on the two-slab structure with the 40% caveat was brought in by consensus despite some of the concerns that the opposition ruled states have raised.
Absolutely, Ashmit, and that is significant. Remember, in the last 8 years, not a single decision at the level of the GST Council has resulted in a vote. All decisions have been unanimous, and that was the indication that we got even this morning. Even the 8 opposition ruled states had said, look, all we are concerned about is revenue protection. We have no objection with the plan that the centre has moved as far as the rate slabs are concerned. We want to ensure that there is revenue protection for us. Now, what we just heard from the finance ministers who were speaking, that there has been no decision yet as far as any additional levy, etc., on compensation is concerned. But what he arrived at, or what he gave us, was the math, and that is important. He said the loss is pegged at 93,000 crores. That's an important number because this is the very first time that the GST Council has pegged the loss estimate. But he also said an important thing, that on the back of sin and luxury goods, you actually make up 45,000 crores. So 93 minus 45,000 crores, that is what the revenue loss amounts to. So that is important for us to note. Now, the slabs are clear. It's 5, 18 and 40. What is also important to note is what we heard there from the finance ministers, that 40% is not just in goods. It will be luxury items as well. So that's going to be important. The expectation was that there would be a very small basket of sin goods, tobacco, cigarettes, and so on and so forth. But now it seems like that basket may in fact be expanded to a larger basket. So we will have to get clarity on what falls under the 40% bracket. But this is the big This is the big decision of the GST Council. That two-rate structure of 5 and 18% has now been ratified. The other important headline, 22nd September, that coincides with the Navratri period. That is when the new rates will come into effect. The hope and the expectation that industry had was that once the council meets, move forward with the rate implementation as soon as possible. But what we just heard there from the finance minister who exited the GST Council meeting was that it will be the 22nd of September that will be the rollout date for the new rates as far as the GST regime is concerned. So that, as I pointed out, coincides with Navratri, and of course, then that's a month away from Diwali. So a month ahead of the Diwali dhamaka that the Prime Minister had promised. But this is the big story. This is the big news. There is now a new GST regime in place, 5, 18 and 40. That is India's new GST regime.
Right, so very important takeaways, those two slab structure, 5 and 18%, with, of course, the 40% reserved for not just sin goods, but also luxury goods, a wider basket that, of course, we'll be trying to get more clarity on. And, of course, September 22nd will be a key date. That's when these rates are set to kick in again. A big administrative challenge in terms of execution of this new regime that we are looking at. In fact, for more takeaways from this meeting, the GST Council meeting day one, let's also, in fact, go across to the Punjab Finance Minister. We spoke to him and we got a comment in from him. Let's listen in.
स्लैब्स बनाई गई हैं, एक 5%, एक 18%, और जो तीसरी स्लैब है स्पेशल स्लैब बनाई है। अब मतलब 4 स्लैब से अब 3 स्लैब बन चुकी हैं और एक स्लैब ही लगभग हटी है। एक स्पेशल स्लैब उसका नाम स्पेशल स्लैब रख दिया गया और 4 में से 3 स्लैब बनी है।
सर, क्योंकि हेल्थ को लेकर भी कुछ कहा जा रहा था कि हेल्थ वाली पॉलिसी,
हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी वो सभी वाले ग्रुप में मर्ज कर गई थी, तो इसलिए सबका रेट नया तय होगा।
और सर, कोई जो लॉसेस की कुछ जो बात
कंपनसेशन सेस की हमने बात करी थी। कंपनसेशन सेस वाला उसको बढ़ाया जाना चाहिए और स्टेटों को कंपनसेट किया जाना चाहिए और जितना लॉस हो रहा है वो प्रोटेक्ट करना चाहिए, पर लेकिन सेंटर ने ये हमारी बात नहीं मानी।
Well, that was the finance minister from Punjab. But speaking of the big takeaways, let's go across to Timsy Jaipuria, my colleague, who's been stationed outside the Sushma Swaraj Bhavan, getting us the latest. Timsy, tell us, you've been speaking to very many state finance ministers. What exactly are they telling you beyond the big takeaways of the two rate getting approved with consensus and the kick-in date of 22nd?
Well, key takeaways include, firstly, a unanimous decision moving from a 4-slab structure to a 2-slab structure and a special rate, 5%, 18% to kick in from 22nd of September. Industry has been given enough time for this transition to the new regime. When it comes to which rate will come where, that is something that Finance Minister will announce shortly. Also, when it comes to detailed list, that will be put out very soon by the government. Meanwhile, when it comes to the insurance premium matter, that is on health insurance and life insurance, they have been completely exempted from GST. When it comes to the demand of states on revenue protection, there was a clear demand. There was a clear demand for also an additional levy. They have not been met. The centre is very clear that the pent-up demand post this rate rationalization exercise will lead to a consumption boost, and that will overcome these losses. Crucial here, compensation cess will continue till 31st of October. So that question remains unanswered. Also an unanswered question, how will the tax incidence will remain the same on tobacco and pan masala? Because currently they go at a rate of 28% plus cess, which is quite high. And now in the new regime, they could be coming under 40% only after compensation cess. What happens to this? How will this rate be matched? That is again an unanswered question. But yes, overall, all common use items, all common man items, biscuit, toothpaste, namkeen, soap, shampoo, hair oil, all coming down to 5%. Aspirational goods such as consumer durables, cement, everything coming down to 18%. All services mostly likely to remain in 18%. Only a select few demerit or luxury goods will remain in the 40% slab. We'll have to now wait and watch for Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman to speak and flesh out more details. But yes, unanimous decision, 5 and 18% now a reality to kick in from 22nd of September.
Right, Timsy, thanks so much for that. Timsy has been joining us from outside of Sushma Swaraj Bhavan, braving the elements there. For the benefit of our viewers, important to point out that from the alerts that we're getting from the government indicating that at 10 p.m. is when there's a presser likely to be conducted, which will, of course, throw more light on some of the issues and questions that we have been discussing, which need more attention as of right now to give us the roadmap for this transition that we're looking at, which, again, not very far. September 22nd is what we're looking at. Shireen is still with us. Shireen, let me come to you. At this stage, what are some of these key questions that remain unanswered, that need clarity? You were also in conversation not very long back with Sanjeev Puri himself. What are some of these questions that the industry is awaiting clarity on?
Well, I think clarity will be required on the itemized rates that will come into effect. As I pointed out, what we just heard there from the finance ministers was that it is going to be sin goods and luxury goods. Now, what constitutes as luxury goods which fall under the 40% bracket, that will be important to see. And while we have been reporting about what will move to the 5% slab, what will move to 18%, a lot of items from 28, like three-wheelers, two-wheelers, under 350cc, cars under 1200cc, etc., were to move from 28% to 18%. So industry will want clarity on finally what is the outcome as far as this. What is also going to be interesting to see is, whether they bring back the anti-profiteering clause. This was something that our guests were speaking about. Remember, there is a provision in the GST law, but do they bring it back? But the sun had set on that. Do they bring it back in any form or fashion is something that we will have to see. But, what is clear now and what we've heard there from the finance ministers is that there is no additional levy. So that's done. Even on things like cigarettes, etc., the indication was that the new rate would be revenue neutral, i.e. pretty much status quo with what the rate was previously. So all of these things will have to be things that we get details on from the government as and when they put out the details, which we are expecting shortly. But, finally, what comes under what rate? Whether what we've been reporting and what the speculation has been is what finally happens. Also, industry would want clarity. There have been a lot of representations, etc., made, for instance, to suggest that there be a uniform rate for, two-wheelers, even above 350cc, etc. Why, in industry's words, distort the market? So is there an agreement there for the GST Council to go ahead with one set of rates? We don't know. So those are things that industry will certainly want clarity on. But at the end of the day, it's a big decision that has come in, that we now have a new GST regime that has been cleared by the GST Council, 5, 18 and 40, and of course an implementation date of the 22nd of September.
Right. On that note, Shireen, let's go across to Timsy. She has with her the Himachal Pradesh Finance Minister. Timsy, over to you.
कल चर्चा होगी?
कल नहीं होगी, आज होगा।
सर, टू रेट आज होगा अप्रूव्ड सर। सर, टू रेट
कब से लागू हो जाएगी?
12% अब नहीं रहेगा सर। 12 और 28 से
कब से लागू होंगे?
12 और 28 नहीं रहेगा।
और 22 सितंबर से
5 and 18,
हाँ,
प्लस सीन एंड लग्जरी गुड्स पे 40%।
कब से लागू होंगे रेट?
22 सितंबर।
That was the Himachal Finance Minister. In fact, from some of the inputs that we're getting indications that from some of the finance ministers, some of the members of the GST Council, we're getting indications that the cess is likely to continue till the 31st of August, which on that note, in fact, let's get Shireen back in on this conversation.
2nd of September से implement होगा।
रेवेन्यू लॉस कितना होगा?
रेवेन्यू लॉस टोटल क्यूमुलेटिव तो 93,000 बताया, लेकिन उसमें से 45,000 जो है वो सिन गुड्स और लग्जरी गुड्स की वजह से कंपनसेट हो जाएगा।
Sir, when it comes to states, how will states get this money?
अभी कोई ऐसा मैकेनिज्म इवॉल्व नहीं हुआ है।
कॉम्पनसेशन सेस कब तक चलेगा?
वो तो डिसकंटिन्यू हो गया जून 2022 से। स्टेट्स को डिवॉल्व नहीं हो रहा है। बाकी जो इनका लोन है उसको रिकवर करें और अक्टूबर एंड तक वो भी बंद हो जाएगा।
कोई एडिशनल लेवी प्रॉमिस करी गई?
नहीं, उसके बारे में कोई सहमति नहीं बनी। हमने डिमांड रखी थी, लेकिन वो सहमति नहीं बनी।
ओके, रेडी?
Right, so let's go across, in fact, to Shireen. Shireen, this key question of one demand that has been raised, that has been put out vocally by a lot of opposition-ruled states, also, in fact, being echoed by some of the BJP-ruled states, that there is a need felt to compensate for this revenue loss that will take place in the hands of the state governments. How do we expect that issue to now move forward, given as how the new structure has received the blessings with consensus of all the state governments?
I think it's very clear that the expectation is that the consumption boost will result in protection of revenue. There has been a decision not to take forward any additional levy. Remember, the compensation cess will come to an end in October, and there is a decision now not to take any additional levy forward. That has been clarified by all the finance ministers that we have spoken with. So the expectation and the assumption is that the consumption boost will offset any potential revenue loss. That is clear at this point in time. But we will have to wait to see what finally falls in that 40% bracket. And again, I just want to go back to the math, because what we heard there from the finance minister was that the GST Council has been told by the centre that the estimated revenue loss stands at 93,000 crores. 45,000 crores is the revenue that they are expected to make up from thin and luxury goods. So if you look at it, you're not really staring at a very big number based on the estimates that have been presented to the GST Council in terms of the revenue loss, which is probably why you have seen an agreement on the part of states to go ahead with this. So I think that's important to note. This math that was actually presented in terms of the eventual GST loss. What we will...
I'll just have to come in there. Timsy has with her the Finance Minister of Punjab, Harpal Singh Cheema. Timsy, coming to you, tell us what are you picking up, what is Mr. Cheema telling you?
बेनिफिट जो है एंड कंज्यूमर की तरफ पहुंचना चाहिए.
तो कोई एडिशनल लेवी नहीं लगेगी.
नहीं, अभी
40% will be the maximum limit.
मैक्सिमम लिमिट ऑफ द 40%. इसका मतलब 4 की बजाय 3 स्लैब बन गई. कहने को 2 स्लैब है, पर लेकिन 3 बन गई. एक 40% की, एक 18%.
रेवेन्यू लॉस कितना होगा?
पंजाब की माने 21% के नजदीक.
और पूरे काउंसिल के लिए कितना रेवेन्यू लॉस होगा ये रैशनलाइजेशन?
वो अभी मैंने वो डाटा मांगा था काउंसिल में, मैंने वो डाटा मांगा था मैडम से कि हमें डाटा दीजिए कितना लॉस स्टेट को होगा, किन राज्यों को कितना लॉस होगा और गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया को कितना लॉस होगा. वो सामने होना चाहिए काउंसिल के सामने, तभी जाके एनालिसिस होना चाहिए. पर लेकिन ये भी उन्होंने नहीं माना.
कब से लागू हो जाएंगे नए रेट्स?
ये 22 सितंबर से.
पंजाब को कितना लॉस होगा?
No, we made our stand very clear in the morning itself before entering the house that Andhra Pradesh, Mr. Nara Chandrababu Naidu has taken a very clear stand to support the GST 2 reforms. He considers them as the next generation reforms, which is in favor of the common man. So the poorest of the poor is the beneficiary. So the rate restructuring or the rate reduction, in whichever name you call it, will bring down the cost for the common man, will improve the saving, will improve the investment, will expand the economy, which will again, in turn, bring economic activity to the state. So this House had unanimously passed the rate restructuring or rate rationalization, what has been suggested and implemented by, asked by the Government of India.
झारखंड का कंसर्न इतना ही है कि हाँ, ये जो जीएसटी रेशनलाइजेशन की बात हुई है उसमें झारखंड को सीमेंट के सेक्टर में, ऑटोमोबाइल के सेक्टर में 2000 करोड़ रुपए का लॉस होगा प्रत्येक वर्ष. क्योंकि हम मैन्युफैक्चरिंग स्टेट हैं, कंज्यूमिंग स्टेट झारखंड नहीं है, तभी ये नुकसान होगा. हम लोगों ने मांग किया है, मैंने मांग किया कि आप झारखंड को 2000 करोड़ रुपए की भरपाई करें.
Shireen, just coming back to you, we've heard from various GST Council members. I just want to get a sense, just want to get some perspective on the 15th of August when we heard the Finance Minister talk about how there's going to be a double dhamaka come this Diwali. At that point itself, to veterans of the tax field such as Najib Shah, to them at that stage itself it seemed challenging from a housekeeping perspective, from an implementation perspective. Now with that timeline having been kicked up to September 22nd, How difficult will it be to actually go about implementing it in practice on the ground?
I think this is why they've decided to go ahead with this 22nd September date because as we've been speaking with experts, while the centre was keen to try and roll out the implementation as soon as possible, given the feedback that industry had given that people were holding back on sales, etc. But one does have to think about the execution challenges on the ground. A lot of the stuff has to be changed on the back end. Softwares have to be updated and so on and so forth. So it seems like the centre has decided to finally go ahead with 22nd of September, which as I pointed out, coincides with the start of the Navratra period. So that is when we will see the new GST regime kick in. So be a washout as far as the festive season is concerned if we were to go all the way to October in anticipation of a GST rate cut. That is not the case. So come Navratra, we will actually see the new GST rates kicking in. So in that sense, there will be a relief for industry because the hope was that things would move as quickly as possible, but that certainly is the case. I mean, it's not immediate, but it is the 22nd of September, nevertheless, which coincides with the Navratra period, Ashmit.
Right, Shireen. Let's also, in fact, listen into the Kerala Finance Minister, K.N. Balagopal, joining Timsy on the big decisions of the GST Council.
Anyway, the discussion and the decision is came. I think the official press conference will be there, I think. Anyway, the rationalisation, all the states accepted. And we have our reservations about the loss of our revenue. So, we requested and asked for the compensation, some kind of compensation. And the levy of the existing compensation which they are collecting from tobacco and cigarettes and all those things are there with the, it is not finalized, it is with the union. But we are suggesting that that should be given. And rationalisation, all states are for that. Only thing is the loss of revenue in a huge amount, the loss is there, that will be there. So that reservation we said, and we asked for the compensation. That is not finalized, but rationalisation is finalized. That the states' revenue will be affected, that is the apprehension. That aspect is not completely solved.
So how much is the amount of revenue loss there?
Revenue loss, actually, they don't have any clear picture about the revenue loss. That is the issue. That is without any...
that expected in
meeting? No, it was not given. That was our main criticism. What is the actual revenue loss, how much it is affecting, what is the... Kerala alone, we are going to lose around 8,000 crores, more than 8,000 crores per annum. So, some states lose more than 15,000. So, that is there. Anyway, we will look into that. Anyway, the right rationalization issue, we all support it. Okay.
GST rationalization पे सहमति, आम सहमति से जो है सबने उसके पक्ष में वोट किया कि सभी चाहते थे कि आम आदमी को राहत मिले। हमारा जो कंसर्न था कि एक तो जो रेट रैशनलाइजेशन का है उसका डायरेक्ट बेनिफिट कॉमन पीपल को मिलना चाहिए, आम जनमानस को मिलना चाहिए, और दूसरा जो कंपनसेशन का है उस पर कोई किसी तरह का कोई अभी तक मैकेनिज्म नहीं बना है।
सर, कितना लॉस केंद्र सरकार ने बताया कि इतना रेवेन्यू लॉस हो सकता है रेट रैशनलाइजेशन की वजह से?
टोटल 93,000 करोड़ का माइनस में है, लेकिन प्लस जो है वो सिन गुड्स और लग्जरी गुड्स की वजह से 45,000 का होगा। तो नेट जो है बैलेंस
माइनस 93 प्लस 45
93 माइनस 45।
पर सर ये जो जीएसटी स्लैब करने पे सहमति पर
नो वोटिंग है, यूनानिमसली रिजॉल्व।
सर तो बेसिकली दो स्लैब करने पे सहमति
नहीं, कोई वोटिंग नहीं हुई, आम सहमति से हुआ।
करने पर बंद है ना सहमति, 2 स्लैब 5 और 18 दो स्लैब पे सहमति,
5 और 18 और सिन एंड लग्जरी गुड्स पे 40%।
40% सहमति बन गई।
अभी तक इसके बारे में कोई चर्चा नहीं हुई, कोई डिसीजन नहीं हुआ। नहीं, कल नहीं होगी, आज होगा।
12% अब नहीं रहेगा सर, 12 और 28
नहीं रहेगा।
22 सितंबर
5 and 18 प्लस सिन एंड लग्जरी गुड्स पे 40%।
कब से लागू होंगे रेट?
22 सितंबर।
कंसेंसस हो गया, सभी लोग इस पर सहमत हो गए, काफी डिस्कशन के बाद हुआ, लेकिन सभी लोगों ने रेट रैशनलाइजेशन पर जो यूनियन गवर्नमेंट का प्रपोजल था, पहले जीओएम ने ओके किया और उसके बाद आज पूरी जीएसटी काउंसिल ने यूनानिमसली इसको ओके किया। जी हाँ 5 और 18।
सर जो ऑपोजिशन कह रही थी कि हमारा रेवेन्यू लॉस होगा उसकी भरपाई कैसे
देखिए बहुत सी चीजें ऐसी हैं कि जो 12 से 18 पे गई, कुछ चीजें ऐसी भी तो है 12 से 18 पे गई और कुछ चीजें 40 पे गई।
सर रेवेन्यू लॉस कितना 48,000 करोड़ है। रेवेन्यू लॉस को कंपनसेट करने पर कोई बातचीत हुई सर? रेवेन्यू लॉस को कंपनसेट करने में कोई बातचीत हुई?
नहीं।
That's, of course, a lot of GST Council members that we have been speaking to get a sense. Again, for the benefit of our viewers, the key takeaways here that we're getting confirmations on is that as far as the GST rate structure is concerned, that has been approved, importantly, by consensus of all the states. The structure that we now have on our hands is 5%, 18%, and 40% being reserved for sin goods as well as for luxury goods. What that entails, what the composition of these slabs will be, what will be the preserve of the 40% slab, those are details that still we're awaiting clarity on. And the other, of course, is that these rates are set to kick in on September 22nd, just in time for Navratri. Those are the two big takeaways. Let's also, in fact, for the benefit of our viewers, remind them that the alerts that we have been receiving from the government, they indicate that the finance minister will be hosting a press briefing where she's likely to give clarity on some of these unanswered questions. Shireen is joining us back now. Shireen, coming to you once again, not very long back, just earlier this evening, you were in conversation with Sanjeev Puri. Give us a sense of the industry's expectations of this rollout of this new rate structure. He was talking of how this could act as an impetus to demand that has been seen lacking in the recent quarters.
Absolutely. I think that is going to be something that industry has been waiting for, and we can play that soundbite out for the benefit of our viewers. Sanjeev Puri telling me that he believes that this rate rationalization, along with the compliance-related issues, will be an impetus, will be a growth accelerator, so to speak, and the industry is certainly hoping that this will provide the much-needed volume growth that the FMCG sector has failed to see in the last several years. So that is the hope at this point in time. We've got those graphics, and we've been running that, as our colleague Timothy has been reporting, of what is going to get cheaper. So, for instance, and I'll request our producers to show those graphics on our screens, things like two-wheelers under 350cc, cars under 1200cc, FMCG products, toothpaste, namkeen, so on and so forth, all of them move to a lower GST slab. A lot of the items that found themselves in the 28% slab, washing machines, hair dryers, cement, for instance, they were all in the 28% slab, and they were moving to 18%. That was the centre's proposal. So all of that will get a significant relief, significant fillip there. The question now is, what has the centre classified as luxury? Sin, we know. Sin is cigarettes, tobacco, pan masala, gutka, so on and so forth. They were expected to be in the 40% slab. The question is luxury. What qualifies as luxury, and what are those luxury items that have found their way into the 40% slab? That is what we will need clarity on there from the finance minister as and when she briefs. But, it's clear that for a lot of the everyday items, butter, namkeen and so on and so forth, even things like apparel below 2,500 rupees, the slab moves lower to 5%. Even for things like movie tickets under 100 rupees, etc., the slab moves lower. So across the board, and I would imagine that those graphics are flashing on our screens, these are things that we were expecting the government to move on, because this was the centre's proposal in terms of the relief that they wanted to provide to consumers. So a whole host of items from 18%, 28% will now move to the lower slabs of 5 and 18%. A lot of the items that were in the 12% will move either to the 5% or to the 18%. A lot of the 28 items will move lower. And of course, thin and luxury goods, I think that is the catch. What qualifies as luxury, what will be down as part of the luxury good basket, that is going to be key and critical for us to watch. But across the board, as we've been reporting, the FMCG sector has been wanting this. The FMCG sector has been asking for this, and not just FMCG, but we heard from R.C. Bhargav, the chairman of Maruti. In fact, Maruti Suzuki is expected to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of this because they are largely in the small car bracket, and the small cars have been the ones that have been impacted significantly in the last few years. So that is going to be something to watch out for. Maruti Suzuki expected to be a significant beneficiary of this move, and of course, even two-wheelers, three-wheelers, which are the finance
taken
minister
today at the GST Council.
Let's listen in.
Over to you, ma'am.